like 7 hours into our stream of today. Still at the Mobile World Congress 2015 in Hall 3 at the Intel booth. And we're not alone anymore. We have Greg Sullivan from Microsoft over here. Great to meet you, Greg.
Good to see you.
And good to see you also. Miriam is also here. So we're kind of squeezing in, Greg. And
we've got nefarious plans for you, Greg.
All right, I'm in.
3 devices, 3 people here. And you know what? We have to talk about my favorite over here, and that's the new foldable keyboard. You just announced it yesterday, right?
We did just announce this is the Microsoft Universal Foldable Keyboard. It's called Universal because it runs with many different operating systems. If you have a Windows device, an Android device, or an iPhone or an iPad, it'll work with all of them and switch between them really instantly. And it's also super thin, 5 millimeters thin, light. But the key set is great because it feels like a real keyboard, and it's just an amazing device. Micro USB charger with a 3-month life of the battery on one charge. So I think there's some real magic inside of this thing. The team did a great job pulling this together, so it's very exciting.
And especially, I mean, this is the ultimate mobile blogging platform for me, right? Whatever kind of device you want to connect it to, whether it's going to be your phone, whether it's going to be your tablet, right? This is just absolutely perfect. And it's even smaller than a CD cover.
Yeah, what I love about it is, and Steve and I were, Steve Payne, Shibby, and I were talking about this. It feels like you took a Microsoft Touch cover and like broke it in half on your knee and stuck it in a little folding thing. It's great.
Well, I'm sure the engineers would describe the process as a little bit different than that, a little bit more deliberate. But yeah, I think there's it's pretty clear that there is some heritage there. The work that the team has done to build a really high quality keyboard and to squeeze it into this form factor is really amazing. It literally fits in your pocket and is transportable, works with a wide range of devices, and can instantly pair with 2 simultaneously, and instantly switch between them, which is really cool.
Yeah, you actually have dedicated buttons on that to switch devices.
Right, and one of the things I've been playing with is switching very, very quickly, and it is literally instantaneous. You can switch between devices in the blink of an eye.
Wow.
This is absolutely brilliant, seriously. And you've been making some really cool mobile Bluetooth keyboards already in the past, but this is right now, I mean, I don't know how it can get anybody. Oh yeah, you just need to fold it again and make it even smaller. If you can fold it again, you can come back on the next stream, Greg.
All right. Deal.
This is really amazing. Plus the battery life. I think this is just absolutely lovely. Besides that, you've been also introducing 2 new phones.
2 new phones we're really excited about, the Lumia 640 and the Lumia 640 XL. Incredible productivity devices. These phones, with their quad-core processors and large, bright screens, are going to help anybody be more productive on the go, in part because they both come with a free year subscription to Office 365 and a terabyte of storage on OneDrive. So this is really an incredible value.
So it's this camera. Can we zoom in with the camera here?
I heard that it's also, you get an extra subscription for a laptop, right? In addition to the phone?
Exactly. You can use the Office 365 on the phone and on your laptop, your Windows laptop or your Mac.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. What I love about these is the display is, impeccable. IPS, 1080p, no compromise. At that price point, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it's amazing. This is really, there's a lot of growth in this kind of affordable to mid-range segment, and we have packed so much value into this device. It's mind-blowing. The fact that you can get this with Office 365 for a year and all of that storage, and all of the great Windows Phone experience that we have built into all the Windows phones that are out there. No compromises at a great price. Yeah, so we're really excited.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, just to recap for our viewers, in terms of the innards, the Snapdragon 400, 1 gig of RAM, I think it's 16 built in, and then there is micro SD, correct?
Yes, expandable storage as well, and the 8 megapixel camera on this one, 13 megapixel with Zeiss optics. Incredible pictures, incredible display, all at a really affordable price.
Yeah. Can you run us through the pricing again?
The pricing is a range from 139 euros to 219 euros, depending on which device and whether it's single or dual SIM, LTE. So there really is a range, but they're all very affordable.
Yeah, no, I was really impressed so far. I played with them quite a bit at the booth.
I will always give you credit for the colors, right? I will always give you credit for having the best polycarbonate in the industry, right? It looks good, and you know what? It's a little bit of a challenge to not turn it into a fingerprint magnet, right? And I think you're doing very well on this. And plus, I just love this blue. It looks great. I love the look and feel of this. I mean, if
it's azure blue.
Oh, here we go. If you see this on a table and lay around, you instantly want to pick it up, and that's what I really like about this. So a lot of manufacturers are really having. It seems to be a challenge for them to just roll out their device in proper colors. We want colors.
And what's nice about these is the backplate is switchable, so they come in a range of colors that you can change out, as well as ones with flip covers as well. So it's a really exciting set of devices. The 640 XL will be available beginning in March, and the 640 in April. So
nice.
So coming right up.
Tell us a little bit more about. Do you think this is a strategy? I mean, obviously, if it is, it's a very smart strategy to get the enterprise to adopt these devices en masse. Because obviously, at that price point, how can you resist? You're getting, the same kind of display, like the 5.7 on here, is bigger than an iPhone, right? So, I mean, obviously, a lot of enterprise customers today are buying in bulk from Android or iOS devices. So, to me, I see this as a very clever approach to get the enterprise to adopt Windows Phone with all of the myriad of Microsoft services that are well established in business.
Right. With Office built in, with Skype, with OneDrive. These devices are great for either a bring your own device environment or a corporate managed. These enable folks to just bring them right in and get productive right off the bat because they have those familiar Microsoft services. But also we're seeing that in enterprises that are looking at either a smartphone and a tablet or looking at the XL and a phablet device where you kind of get a bit of both. Enterprises are looking for the type of manageability that they can get with our devices, and know that they'll have the Microsoft services and apps that they've come to rely on.
And with dual SIM, you can have an employee use their own SIM for personal use, and a company supplied and provisioned SIM for the actual work stuff.
Right, and more tools to manage those devices once they're in the enterprise as well.
So, actually, I was always wondering why we don't have more dual SIM phones on the Western markets. In China, like 80% of the phones are dual SIM phones. So I think this is a unique selling point to have a dual SIM phone, and also a really, really affordable one.
Is there plans to sell these in the U.S., do you know?
Yes, there is. In fact, we announced some of the ranging.
T-Mobile, yeah.
Exactly. So we're really excited that the affordable space is really where the fastest growth in the smartphone market is right now, and we're really excited to see these devices come not just in emerging markets but also in the U.S. as well.
Yeah, I think I was in my mind thinking any dual SIM versions in the U.S. because I think, Sasha, to answer your question, knowing the U.S. market like I do, most customers' heads would explode with the concept of putting two SIMs in their device. Most of them don't know what a SIM is because they walk into a carrier store and walk out with a phone, right? And I think there's that tie-in. It's hard to break that.
Well, the scenarios are different. I think in some markets, dual SIM is about price arbitrage. In others, it's about this kind of separation of a work and personal SIM card. So whatever the environment and whatever the purpose for dual SIM, it'll be supported.
Great. Tell us a little more in terms of. Would you say this device? I mean, this device is spec'd. Seems to me to replace a 635 even already, which just came out, 6 months ago, right?
Well, yeah, it's an evolution of that platform, and the naming. The nomenclature kind of states that that's where it lives in the range of devices. One of the things that folks have been asking about a lot is okay, what about the flagship devices that you keep referring to? And we very intentionally mentioned in January when we announced Windows 10 that we are working on some flagship phones as well, and we'll have more to say about that later. I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead the question I know you're going to ask me.
Well, we're all very excited about the flagship, but I heard that's what Steven said on stage yesterday, right? So we know it's coming. Now we're like, oh my God, it's coming. So we're really excited. Another thing I was going to ask you is a very interesting, maybe a marketing question. Interesting decision to call the larger phone the 640 XL. In the past, you've gone like 645 or 642 or 641. Is that a deliberate new thing? Like, it's kind of reminds me of the Nokia X branding.
Exactly, from last year.
Well, I think you've seen, we've received feedback that this does make sense. The devices share a lot. There's a lot of commonalities in terms of the specifications, as you mentioned, and the fact that the one with the bigger screen is the XL kind of makes a lot of sense to people. So that is what we went with.
But I guess it seems like maybe a new branding strategy on Microsoft's part, right?
Yeah, I think it is something that makes sense to people kind of inherently based on the specs and the size of the screen, and so in this case, it sure was the right thing to do.
So do you think it will make sense then in the future to still have the 700, 800 series, or will you just stick with the 600 for kind of like the mid-range, and then have like maybe the 900 or 800 for the high end? And then because I've always found honestly that was one of the kind of like sticky kind of annoying points with the brand, because there's so many different devices that share very similar numbering that you kind of lose track really quickly. And some brands have just tiers, right? It's like you have a low end, like for example, HTC has the One, that's the high end, and then Desire is mid-range, and there's a million of them, but there's still it's just a Desire. Is there any intent in going that direction at all?
Well, we could have a long conversation about the various naming conventions in the industry. I'm not sure that there's a lot of kind of simplicity with respect to that. I'm not going to announce kind of our future plans for naming of devices, but it is in an effort to kind of simplify and have some direct correlation to kind of the value within the range where the devices sit and what some of the characteristics are. So the evolution, as you mentioned, from 635 into 640 and then the 640 XL, as I said, the bigger screen just makes sense that's what it is.
Without even asking you about your roadmap and how it looks like for the next 12 months, but don't you think that actually the wheel dynamics on this market are really happening in this market below $300, even sometimes below $250? Because when I look at this high-end range over here, the devices for $600, $700, almost $800 US, it became very predictable, right? We know, okay, it's going to get the latest SoC, it's going to get the latest camera technology, right? But to see devices with former flagship components, like, a phone like this would have cost like $500-600 2 years ago. So, and now it's happening.
It's the display that I think really sets this apart.
Exactly.
I mean, the processor is great,
the display.
But it's been used on many Lumias before. The cameras we expected would be great, but we compare this to the 635, and the 635 is just an LCD, and it just looks absolutely pale in comparison. Not just the quality of the colors and the contrast, but the resolution. I mean, you went full HD.
Yeah, and it's one of the exciting things you can notice walking around the show floor here to see how much energy there is in this space.
Yeah.
I think it's not having a really strong value proposition in an affordable device is not, and having a high-end device are not mutually exclusive propositions. So we expect to continue to have a range of offerings across price points and specs. But you're right, there's a ton of energy in this space, and it's not coincidental that this is where a lot of the growth in the market is, and so we're really proud to have such a value-packed offering in that space. And as I said, walking around the show floor here, you see that there is a tremendous amount of energy around that.
For sure. Do you feel that? I mean, it's not really a question. It's more. I feel like personally, like when you look at the lower end of the market. I mean, this is not low end really, although the pricing is low end. if you look at that market, at the pricing tier, I don't think anything could touch Windows Phone before. And I certainly don't think anybody can touch this now. Because, I mean, the Android experience at low end is a terrible experience. I know Google's worked really hard to make it better, but it's not really happening. You know, and so I'm just really wondering how they're going to manage to, you know, compete.
Well, that's very intentional, and one of the things that Windows Phone has offered is a great performance across the range of devices, and that's something that our competitors are trying to implement, as you mentioned. But it has been a hallmark of Windows Phone for a while now. The fact that you get a really consistent high-end experience on a device that doesn't cost a lot of money, and it is dramatically different with our competitors. And as you said, they're working on it, but they got some catching up to do.
Right
I mean, there's a reason why the 500s from Lumias were so successful in very specific markets, right? Actually, the leading phone in this price range, especially when you look at Latin America, where the Lumia 530s were really well. Markets like Russia, but even in Europe, like in Italy, right? They've been really gaining market share, and I think basically you opened up the markets with the Lumia for this to say, you know what, if you're spending $150 or $200, that doesn't translate into that you're getting a very, very cheap phone in terms of the quality, in terms of the materials we're using, in terms of the performance. No, getting a proper mid-range phone into the entry-level price range, and I think this was a good message for the market and opened up the overall market.
Yeah, and it was intentional. We designed Windows Phone to run very, very well on devices that meet those criteria. And one of the things that people realize once they get their hands on Windows Phone is you know, has always been true, that once you put your credentials in, you log in with your Microsoft account and you put your Facebook credentials in, and all of a sudden the phone lights up with your friends and your apps and the things that you care about, and it really feels like it's uniquely yours. So the combination of having all of the high-end features, the performance of the software, and that really unique and personal experience make it even a better value. And it's one of the things that folks have come to appreciate about Windows Phone. And we know that once you kind of have that experience and you see how personal it becomes, it's a really powerful experience. And so when folks get their hands on it and try that, we know they really love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, do you want to talk about HoloLens?
I'm very excited about the work that we're doing there. Yeah, I think you saw.
You have to.
I have to.
There's just no way.
All right, I'm dismissed if I don't. Right. Yeah, we had a really exciting event in Redmond back in January where we unveiled Windows 10 to the world for the first time. And some other exciting new devices, including the HoloLens, and that was one of the things that we talked about is the notion that Windows 10 was designed to scale across a range of hardware unlike any other platform out there. Windows 10 will light up wearables, it will light up Internet of Things devices, it will run on phones and phablets and tablets and 2-in-1s and full PCs and 84-inch screens with the Surface Hub. And we also introduced the HoloLens to really show the world the first truly holographic computing platform that enables you to kind of use your world as a canvas to create 3D holograms and to share them and to enable a whole new type of computing. And what's most exciting to me about this prospect is that it's not a separate category of device with a separate set of scenarios. Now, there are unique things that you'll be able to do with this device, but it is still powered by Windows 10. It will run universal Windows applications. It will become part of the same spectrum of devices that Windows 10 enables. And one of the things that's happened in this industry is maybe not on purpose, but what's happened is there are these kind of arbitrary categories of devices that we've been forced to think about, is that there's one world for phones and tablets, and then there's another world for laptops, and then there's another platform and user experience for TVs and game consoles and big screen devices. And end users people have been forced into stitching those worlds together themselves and kind of bridging them and making the experiences that they want to span them hop from one to the other. And it's a lot of work. And I don't think people even realize the cognitive load that is placed on us in managing those discrete categories of devices. And what Windows 10, one of the things it's all about is kind of knocking down those barriers and treating this as a range of a spectrum of devices that has a consistent platform with a consistent user experience, with a single application that can run across a range of devices and show up appropriately on whichever one you happen to be using at the time. So it's a very powerful new way to think about this, and instead of thinking of these separate categories as one platform and another platform, we think about all of them and the mobility of the experiences across them, and I think that's going to be a real strong differentiator for us.
Don't forget the Xbox.
And the Xbox. I think I mentioned game consoles. That's the game console I was referring to, if there was any question.
Oh, there was.
And what I really love about Windows 10 is that you brought a personal digital assistant to the desktop with Cortana. I already love Cortana because it has attitude compared to the two other solutions that are available on the market. But now it's on the desktop, and for me, as a desktop user, because I actually switched back to the desktop like 1.5 years ago, and for the office, it just makes perfect sense to use an assistant like this. I'm constantly searching for some documents, right? I'm constantly trying to search online for some information, and I'm also having a headset on all the time pretty much, right? Because we're sitting up with 3 people in our room, right? And you don't want to disturb them while you're listening to something, right? So it's just perfect. And I'm so glad that you did this.
Yeah, it's one of the exciting things to me is to see even to the band, extending that functionality so that I can use my band to ask Cortana to remind me to take out the garbage when I get home or whatever. The notion that it's interesting because when the team that designed and built Cortana set out, they didn't set out initially to build a personal digital assistant. They actually asked a more fundamental question, is how can smartphones and computers be more helpful, help me get more done, be more efficient? And that led to this discussion of, well, boy, it's really like a personal assistant who kind of manages and keeps track of things and reminds me of things and is always right there helping me perform my best. And so that evolved into what became Cortana in Windows Phone, and then the expansion of that, as you say, into Windows 10 and the PC is a really exciting development, because as I mentioned, this spectrum of devices that Windows 10 enables will all inherit that same capability. So it'll just get better and better because it is a learning system and an artificial intelligence that gets better with use. It's going to be really fun when the large numbers of people that get Windows 10 for free begin using it. It'll just continue to get better and better. So that's going to be fun to watch.
And it's another addition to this kind of seamless experience that you created with Windows 10 all over different platforms. You mentioned the band. I mean, we have Cortana on our smartphones, and I can have it on a real Windows on a desktop or on my notebook, and I really like that.
Yeah, it's exciting, and one of the other aspect is that Cortana is also kind of a platform capability that applications can pretty easily take advantage of. So software developers can hook into the APIs to enable their own applications to work very seamlessly with Cortana. So it's going to be really exciting to see that continue to grow.
And to be honest, I can't wait for Windows 10. I'm the Windows user in here, like for all the time. I have Windows on all of my notebooks and of course on my desktop. I just bought into Office 365 because it's the best Office suite, and the way you extended Dropbox. I said Dropbox. The OneDrive. Oh my goodness. Actually, I'm still using Dropbox on the side because I'm still trying to convince all the other guys over to OneDrive. With unlimited storage when I'm an Office 365 user, I just really like this. Plus, the front end, that's where I wanted to talk about Dropbox. Because if I compare the front end of OneDrive, especially when I'm uploading videos, when I'm sharing complete albums, and the way I can use OneDrive in my browser, if I compare it to Dropbox and all these other solutions that are available on the market, this feels like this is like 5 years ahead in terms of UI design, in terms of usability. So you did an amazing job with this, and that's why I also can't wait until I'm getting Windows 10. Yes, I'm using Windows 8, but on my desktop, guess what? I'm still using Windows 7, and I have some reasons for it.
Well, you point out an interesting. You make an interesting point. The notion that the cloud is an increasingly kind of fundamental element to our platform ties into this idea that Windows 10 will span a range of devices, because we've gone from thinking about the Windows platform as the operating system software that runs on my desktop PC or my laptop, to really thinking about this substrate that lights up an increasingly broad range of devices, is inherently cloud enabled, connects the experiences that I want. So whether it's the photo albums that I want to share, or the report I need to write for work, or the game I want to play, or the thing I want to learn about on the internet, those experiences follow me through the devices that I use every day, and many of us use multiple devices every day, and we shouldn't be asked to do a bunch of work to kind of take my stuff from one to the other, and the mobility of the experience across these devices is prime. And Mobile World Congress has historically been a lot about the mobile device itself, and it still is and will continue to be so. But we're really thinking at a higher level about the mobility of experience across a range of devices, and that's what we've done with Windows 10, is enable that at a very fundamental level. And it's something that we're seeing our competitors acknowledge that customers want, but we really feel we have a jump on that.
So I have a question for you. Sorry, I'm not speaking to the mic. I have a question for you, and that's, I'm an ex-dev from video game world, and, it's kind of a pie in the sky, and I'm saying that in a positive way, to have a single OS, like a single platform you can develop on, right? If you're a game developer, develop games, they will run on both PCs and Xbox, and on the phones, of course, which is great. But I'm wondering, how are you going to get... There's no doubt that in terms of, console and desktop and tablet and PC experience, you're going to get a lot of adoption because, Windows is still very well established. But in the mobile market, you still need to make some headways in terms of apps. And it's been really challenging for Microsoft to get the developers on board with Windows Phone. So now that it's Windows 10 and it's all encompassing, I'm wondering what the strategy is with you enticing developers. Obviously, you're going to say, well, it's Windows 10, it runs on anything. That's one strategy. But I'm not convinced that it's going to be as easy to get the developers who right now are looking at, well, what's the most popular platform and what should I code on first, right? I mean, there's kind of a chicken and egg thing. As a developer, I've worked for companies that had this challenge, right? They were stuck into a universe that wasn't including Windows Phone. And they kind of wanted to, but at the same time, as you know, it was very challenging for them to kind of make that leap. So what do you think needs to happen there?
Well, I think there are several things that need to happen, and one of them is build kind of critical mass in a user base. As a former developer, you know that's what the opportunity that you're presented with helps you allocate your resources and figure out what your priorities are. There are roughly 1.5 billion Windows users today. In January, we announced that we will make Windows 10 available as a free update to a very large number of that installed base of Windows users. And so we're going to try to make it very, very easy for as many people as possible to get to Windows 10 to enjoy the benefits that we've been discussing. But then also to create an opportunity, an instant almost opportunity for developers. Now, the other element that needs to happen is, as we mentioned, the universal application model. One of the benefits of Windows 10 is that there is a consistent app platform across all of these devices, so that as a developer, you can write one app that runs across the broadest range of devices of any platform. And so if I want to write an app that runs on phones and phablets and tablets and big screens, Windows 10 makes that very, very easy to do because the system itself manages scaling of the user experience to the appropriate size of the screen it happens to be running on. You don't have to write 3 different applications depending on the execution environment. If you're running it on a phone, it'll look great on a phone and it'll scale appropriately. If you run it on a tablet or a larger screen, it will do so as well. That's part of what our universal app platform is doing in Windows 10. We'll go into a lot more detail at our Build conference at the end of April in San Francisco, where we'll talk about that in great detail and disclose the evolution of our tool set and help folks really turn that into real applications. And that's when this is going to start to get very exciting, because we've seen almost 3 million people so far become Windows insiders and download the Windows 10 code.
Yeah.
And now, as we approach Build and we start to engage fully with our developers on Windows 10, you'll see that kind of vision become a reality. And it's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering, like, what you said is really important, is the 1.5 billion user base, right? I mean, a huge chunk of that is going to switch to Windows 10. You're making it frictionless. And but the question I have is more like on the phones, right? Like, you need, in order to really test and use an app and trial it out there in the real world, you actually need the devices. So I've noticed Microsoft do something really clever, which is make their apps available across all the OSs. And what I'm wondering is if the next, the kind of next Trojan horse would be write your app in Windows as a developer, and it'll run on other platforms because we'll generate the code for you. That would be the way to do it, because obviously, right now you need to build up a user base of the phones as well in order to have that seamless UI scaling for the users, right? If they're on an iPhone, it's going to take them a year or two to switch potentially to Windows Phone before they can run these Windows 10 apps. So that's kind of what I'm wondering more about, really.
Well, that's an interesting thought, but we're going to focus on helping developers build great Windows apps. We're also, as you mentioned, we are investing ourselves in bringing our own applications and services cross-platform. Now, in part because, as we've said, we want to go where our customers are, and in many cases they are on these platforms. What we hope to do then, especially in the Windows 10 timeframe, is to demonstrate the fact that if they happen to choose our platform for some elements of this spectrum of devices they use, then they'll have a great experience. And in fact, the more of our devices they choose, the degree of consistency, the integration, the seamlessness of the experience, it'll feel really good, and you'll want to use more of our stuff.
The gateway drug.
That's not how I would characterize it, but it's gonna feel great.
Greg,
Right,
thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for this amazing keyboard.
He's keeping
which
it.
will
Watch
be
out.
in my backpack very, very soon. Can be sure
My friend
about
Scott
this.
wants that back, and I got to bring it to him. Yeah.
We're going to have a little break right now for some 5 minutes. And then we're going to be back and going to talk to Bill Pearson and Scott Apeland from Intel Software Group about Internet of Things and, what they're doing with it. So stay tuned. We're going to be back very soon.